Welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs go all in on their business, and we introduce them to professionals that can help them to do so. Today, we have a very special guest. Jay, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Roderick. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on the show with us today. Please introduce yourself and the name of your businesses.
I'm Jay Jacobson. I am the founder and owner of Jacobson Professional Staffing and Jay's Cookies. Here at Jacobson Professional Staffing, we help organizations in developing stronger teams, developing leaders that can perform under pressure. I've also been a licensed funeral director for more than 4 decades, and most recently I've written a book on leadership called Lead by Legendary Example.
Awesome. We so look forward to learning more about what you've had going on. But before that, we want to learn a little bit more about your story. And we understand that time is one of our most valuable resources. So tell us a little bit about your journey, Jay.
Well, that idea of time being our most valuable asset is something that I have lived and learned through building teams and organizations. In staffing, every moment counts. The time you spend hiring, the time you spend mentoring, or just supporting your team directly affects the outcome that ultimately your clients feel. In my book, Lead by Legendary Example, I spend a lot of time talking about the proper use of time and the value of putting that time to good use. We're at a kind of a precipice right now with artificial intelligence where we're about to have a whole lot of our time freed up by being able to use tools such as AI to do some of the more menial, time-consuming tasks and free us to be more present with the people that are in the room.
Yeah, I see that you're already talking about some of those things that have helped you to be successful. I want to take a step back and talk about how you got there. Now, I looked at your research and I noticed that you have been in this same industry for almost 46, 47 years. Now, it's amazing that you've been in the career for that long, but I always like to start with the origin, Jay. So was it where it was a family-owned business? You saw this ahead, or you just chose this industry?
Roderick, I came from this from a very different perspective. Most people in our industry do come up from family-owned businesses. It's generational. I am the first generation of my family to graduate from college, and I took a very different route. My dad was a carpenter and a mailman, and so for me to go to college and decide what I wanted to do very early was very unusual. But when I was a junior in high school, I was asked to be a pallbearer for my aunt's funeral up in South Dakota, and it was a horrible funeral, to be honest. Everything was handled very poorly, very unprofessionally. And I walked away from that experience thinking somebody has to be able to help people at this time in a much better way. And I knew from that very moment on that this is what I was meant to do. And so I started talking with my local funeral director. I got more and more interested. And the day after I graduated from high school, I moved into the basement of a funeral home and started working, and I've been working with funeral service ever since. Funeral service provides us an interesting opportunity because we're constantly engaged in the middle of critical conversations. We have people that are coming to us in the worst week of their lives, and we have to be there and be fully present. We have to be able to assess what's going on in the room, to understand the language that's being spoken and not spoken around the table we're sitting at, and help guide people in making decisions that are very difficult and oftentimes are very, very cantankerous because the people in the room don't want to be in the same room together. But because of the situation, because of the death in the family, these people that make an art form of avoiding each other now are thrust into one room around one table, trying to come to consensus on how are we going to remember our loved one.
Yeah, I know in this particular time, we know we want to talk about resting in peace, but for yourself, you're dealing with the families and themselves. And my question to you today, Jay, is how have you been able to navigate through what is generally a lot of negativity but you have been doing it for so many years and you're still a positive person. You know, you still have others on mind, looking to serve others. How have you stayed positive surrounded in an industry that is, you know, a bad time, a bad week of everyone's life?
Well, it's not easy. This profession will take every ounce of mental energy that you have. You have to be on for people. You have to be there and be the calm one in the room. And you have to be able to pivot at a moment's notice. But building those kind of skills from very early on, I started with my first job as a paperboy at age 9, and just learning the people skills of being able to talk with people that are much older than yourself, being able to understand what their needs are, uh, to understand that in many cases they're very lonely people and just need somebody to talk to, need, to have some input from the outside world, and just starting to build the skills of always being reliable, always getting that newspaper on the door before the coffee is poured, always being there on a Thursday night to collect the cost of the subscription, and being willing to spend a few extra minutes with a lonely widow who hasn't had a visitor all week. Those skills start developing very early, and you cultivate those throughout your whole childhood into your teens and ultimately into your adulthood. And that's something that we're seeing, an erosion of those skills with the next generation coming up. And a good deal of my time is spent helping train those people new coming into our profession, those people skills. The ability to sit in a room and see the nonverbal language, for instance. Um, a lot of these folks between 20 and 35, at the time when we naturally developed those skills, between 13 and 15, they were handed a cell phone. And so now their world, instead of looking at people and learning those cues, are now texting and emailing. And so they miss that opportunity in their development to really hone those people skills. So we spend a lot of time going back and teaching that in the adult situation.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I know we have the staffing, I know we have the cookies. Do you still practice? You still have your funeral service going?
I am not in a funeral service every day.
Mm-hmm.
I retired from full-time funeral service about 17 years ago
Mm-hmm.
and opened my consulting company. And it was built around helping other funeral directors build better um, funeral service to their clients. It was going in and giving them relief so they could get away. It was going in and working with their young staff. It was evaluating some of the practices that they were doing and helping them improve the ultimate customer service outcome.
Yeah. Now you have been in that, you were in that industry for about 30 years. And then at that time, you had made the decision that you were going to try to provide that service that you're sharing about for others who were lacking in those skills. Jay, was there an event that happened that made you say, you know what, I'm going to burn the ship and go all in on my staffing training company?
Yes, indeed, there was. I got to the point where my two daughters had graduated from college and were starting to go on with their own lives. They were moving away, and in a small town funeral home, you are tied very close to that funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
So you aren't able to just get up and go visit your kids or ultimately your grandkids. And so as they started changing their station in life, my wife and I decided we don't want to be on call 7 days a week. We don't want to be tied to a phone or a pager, and we want to be able to travel. We want to be able to go out and visit our kids. Uh, so we decided I'm going to make the change. I'm going to move away from full-time funeral service, start my own company. There was a huge need at the time in our state for people just to come in and fill in, so a funeral director could take a vacation, go to a wedding, whatever it was. And so we saw that need, and we started a company that would be focused primarily on filling in, and it evolved into having to help train their staff. Because once we started working with the staffs in all these different funeral homes, we realized how big a void there was in the mentorship in our organizations.
Yeah, now that is something that is very important that you do different than a lot of other staffing companies don't. Sometimes those staffing companies are just simply looking to fill the position. They need this, they need that. But you have another level that you do with your training. Tell us a little bit more about how you're training these individuals to fill those positions.
Well, we go in and we number one, we work side by side with them. The best way to learn the staff skills and their deficits is to actually work side by side with them. And a lot of staffing experts, a lot of training experts, it's all book knowledge, but we take it the extra step. We go in, we work side by side with these young funeral directors. We coach them all the way along. So in the moment, when we're working with a funeral, when we're working with a family, we're side by side with them, explaining to them this is a way we can do this better, but not only telling them that we can do it better, but going through the why behind it. Because we make these decisions now, because we plan the service in this order and with these kind of logistics, when we get down to this section of the service, the burial or whatever it is, your life is going to be a lot easier because you've already anticipated those things. That level of thinking and that level of the logistics aren't fully developed in younger funeral directors. And that's where we can step in and help. Now, we saw a huge change in COVID here in our industry. A lot of the people my age that would normally be there in the place to mentor these young people decided, I don't want to do this anymore. And so we have a huge gap between owners and the people who are actually doing the work. And so that's an area we step in a lot of times and fill because the owners don't have the time to do the training. Their role is no longer to work side by side on an everyday basis. Their role is to run the organization. I come in and I work with the training. I work with setting with these young people and help them in a real setting with a family, making arrangements for a funeral, actually working a visitation with them, working a funeral service with them, and asking questions of them and helping them to develop the thought process within themselves. Is okay, I walk into a room before anybody gets there. What am I thinking about? What are the things that we need to get done today to make everything flow as smooth as possible? And I remind them that if they do their job well, if they really do it right, they become invisible. The day of the service, nobody even notices they're there. And that's a very hard concept for a lot of young people because you put all that work in and all that effort in, and you want to be recognized for it. Well, this isn't a business that you get recognized. You fade into the background. And once they understand that, they become much better in terms of serving their community and the families that we serve.
Yes. Now, I know that this knowledge and skill gap is just not isolated to where you are in Iowa. It has to be a nationwide thing. Are you helping these directors all over the country or just where you are? Tell us a little bit about that.
I am. I've just recently started branching out beyond Iowa. I'm doing a lot more presentations at conferences, leading larger sessions, seminar type events where we walk through, whether it be improved arrangement conferences, whether it be using AI better in your organization to free up time, basic customer service, basic techniques in terms of how you present yourself, how you care for families in crisis.
Now, tell us a little bit more about your book. I'm sure you had a whole bunch of experience and you just wrapped it up. I want to learn a little bit more about your leadership book. Tell me about it.
You would think that that's where the book came from, but
Okay.
in fact, I never set out to write a book.
Okay.
Um, we had a tremendous pivot in our lives with my wife and I about 2 years ago. She went in for what was supposed to be a routine knee replacement surgery. and things went horribly, horribly wrong. And over the next 18 months, she had 12 major surgeries. And during the time sitting in the hospital room, I was writing notes for our two daughters, and we shared a document so they could know in real time what was happening. We were at the Mayo Clinic 3 hours away from home, and I have one daughter that lives out in California, so they weren't here present where they could know this stuff. But as I began writing these notes and keeping them informed, more of my thoughts, of the skills necessary to endure what we were going through started creeping into my writing. And it became almost a document to help my two grandsons understand some of the skills they might be needed if they ever have to go through this. And at that time, they were age 5 and age 1. So they were too young to understand. But when we got done and I started looking over the things that we had put together, it became very obvious that there were very, very definite pillars of leadership that had been developed over my lifetime that helped me process through this whole um, 18 months of surgeries and just putting that into a form that others could benefit from and realizing the business value of that kind of development of leadership skills. We wanted to get it into some form of print. Uh, we put it together. It's an interesting book in terms of leadership because it's not like your typical leadership book. This one is built around stories of real life. It starts with the time that I spent up following the United 232 air disaster in Sioux City, Iowa, and caring for the 112 people that did not survive. It goes on to testifying before the United States Senate hearings. And those real life, real crisis situations that really hone the skills you've been practicing are the situations that we drew inspiration from in writing this book.
Now, where could we find the book if we were looking to try to learn more about it?
The book is available on Amazon. It's also available through Apple Books. We just finished getting it put out in audio format, and that was an interesting process because that's my first experience with creating something in audio format, and I knew that it wasn't a book I could read. I was too close to the material.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to secure someone to read it for us out of Kansas City, and he would keep writing back to me. He'd email me. He said, "Jay, I'm having trouble with this section of the book. I've had to record it 4 different times because I can't get through it without choking up."
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was a real testimony to the way it was written because he was reading it and feeling it the way I felt it in the moment and the way I felt it when I wrote the material in it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It seems like there's a lot of heartfelt stories inside of there, a lot of your experiences. And I know that we've talked about two tough things. We've talked about, funeral services and death. And we talked about that traumatic situation you went through with your wife over those 18 months. But now I want to talk about the cookies. Now, I want to give you my assumption is that you were a funeral director and you were trying to help bring comfort to those families, and you would place cookies on the counter. Am I right about how that Jay's
You
cookies
are
start?
actually close, but
Okay,
not quite.
okay. Tell us about it.
The cookie company developed out of my staffing and helping work with funeral directors around the state in particular.
Hmm.
And one of the things, not just funeral homes, but all businesses struggle with how do I say thank you to the people who use my business? Um, and I'd done a lot of research in how that affects the relationship that you have with the business going forward. And so the funeral directors never had time to do that. They were moving on to the next family, they were in the next situation. And so I said, this is pretty simple. Why don't you let me? I'll just bake a dozen cookies. I'll send it to your family. We'll see if this works for you. And we started doing that for one funeral home, and then it was 5 funeral homes. And pretty soon it was like, okay, we need to organize this a little bit better. We created a company to do this and a system to process it. We started getting into the real estate market where realtors and mortgage companies would send us a list, and now we've built this business up to where we will ship as many as 650 dozen cookies a week all over the country.
Oh,
And
that's amazing that it went from just one small thing of you adding value to those
yes.
funeral directors to now it turned into its own thing. Now tell us a little bit about those flavors. Tell us a little bit about what you're making. Tell us a little bit more about the cookies.
We have 38 different kinds of cookies, and
Hmm.
our number one seller for most of our business customers is a chocolate chip.
Hmm.
And we may have a State Fair award-winning chocolate chip cookie that we send out. But we focused in on flavor versus a decorated cookie.
Hmm.
So we don't do anything that's frosted. We don't do anything that has any kind of icing because we have to ship them.
Hmm.
But we've created things like triple chocolate Guinness espresso. We've got a champagne celebration cookie. We've got a lemon cream. One of our more recent ones is an Irish coffee cookie that has Jameson whiskey and Bailey's Irish cream in it. So we get a little creative with the recipes. We want to make sure the taste is foremost in the cookie, and then we start working on the texture and the presentation. But the taste always comes first.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. We want it to look good, but more importantly, we want that cookie to taste good. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we want it to be soft. We don't
Yes.
want a hard, crumbly cookie.
Yes, yes,
So,
that is not what you want at that time.
no.
Thank you so much for sharing that portion of your business. Now we've talked a lot about your journey, your time, in the funeral service industry. We've talked about your staffing company, and we've talked about the cookies in your book. And I'm confident, Jay, that over this time in business, you have acquired and nurtured a bunch of best practices or business skills that have helped you overall to be successful. Do you mind sharing with us a couple of those skills today?
Sure. I think probably the most useful business skill that I've mastered or hope that I've mastered are people skills. It's the ability to be fully present where your feet are. Be with the people that are in the room with you. Set aside the cell phone, set aside the screen, set aside everything else that's a distraction, and be fully with the person that's counting on you, whether that be your business client, your business partner, your family at home. All of those things need to be balanced out. And when you're with them, you need to invest your time wisely with them. Because one of the things that we learn in the funeral profession is nobody is guaranteed tomorrow. And it's a very helpful lesson for us in the value of time, that it is truly a gift. And it is really the one equalizer we all have. We all get 24 hours a day. The choices we make and how we spend that time are what makes a difference between whether or not we are successful in our lives or we fail in our lives.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's very important. And I knew you were going to talk about time. I knew you were going to talk about time. Uh,
Time's important.
Absolutely. And we've talked a lot about the journey and the business, and I appreciate you sharing those skills. But now I want to pivot a little and talk about Jay. So, Jay, let's just say that you continue to have a successful career. You're just flinging those cookies and books off the shelves, and time and money is no issue at all. What is it that Jay would do with his time?
Jay is going to spend as much time as he can with his grandsons. Jack and Henry are the apple of Papa's life. I will be at every sporting event that they have, every school event that they have. We'll go on vacations together. We'll travel around. We'll expose them to as much information as we possibly can and open up their world. Let them see that there is a great big world out there. There is so much to learn, so much to appreciate, and just take the time to do that. But in terms of building wealth, in terms of acquiring a lot of stuff, those things I'm getting old enough that they aren't important. It's those experiences, and I've often shared with young people that Have those experiences as you live your life. Don't wait till you retire. Spend a life having experiences because you're not guaranteed that you're going to have that retirement. You're not guaranteed that you will have time to travel, to do things that you put off. So do them. Uh, there's not one person in the nursing home that wishes they had a bigger bank account or talks about their bank account, but they will talk about the experiences they had in their life. And so you want to build a life that you can look back on and with a smile enjoy all the things you've been able to experience
Yes, tell
and
us.
all the people you've been able to affect.
Yeah, tell us. Where is the next experience you're going to take the boys? Where are you going to take them next? What do you got on your
We are
board?
actually planning a large family vacation in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
My wife has not been able to travel for almost 3 years now. She's now getting back to the point where she can travel. So, a year from now, or a little less than a year from now, we are all going to, all six of us, go to Hawaii and spend some time on the beach.
Nice. That's going to be excellent. Get your toes in the sand. Uh,
Absolutely.
let some of that water go up on her knee. It's
Mhm.
refreshing. I'm sure some purification in that water make it all better for her. And I wanted to ask you to share with us if people have questions about your journey, about your businesses, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you, Jay?
The best place is through our website, jacobsonprostaff.com. You'll see a link to the offerings that we do in terms of education. You'll see a link to the blog that we post on a regular basis, as well as a link to purchase Lead by Legendary Example.
Awesome. Please go there and look for those things so you can grab a portion of Jay's life there. He's had a magnificent experience. And Jay, I definitely want to let you know you've been a magnificent guest talking about a subject that most people don't ever want to talk about, but you've done a great job of navigating through that. And we want to honor you by giving you the last word. So, Jay, if you don't mind, please look into the camera and tell the people something good.
Well, Roderick, we've spent a lot of time thinking about what really defines leadership. It's not the titles we hold or the emails that we sent. It's in the moments when people are counting on us, the decisions we make, the presence we bring, the integrity we carry into those moments. Every minute we choose to spend shapes the culture, the people, and the legacy that we leave behind. That's the main thing that I want to leave behind. Uh, we have to be present. We have to be aware that what we do affects others around us. We have to have a mindset where we want to leave the world a better place than we found it. And we do that by example, by leading an example that others want to follow.
Thank you so much. Those are some great words. If everyone is listening, please pay attention to that because it is what you leave behind. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us today, Jay.
Thank you, Roderick. This has been a real pleasure.
Absolutely. And to everyone that is watching, be kind and thanks.